As my next guest approached her 50th birthday, she wanted to understand why so many Americans struggled to live well as they aged. Debra Whitman, AARP's Chief Public Policy Officer and recognized expert on aging, has been immersed in the subject for decades. But in her new book, The Second 50, Answers to the 7 Big Questions of Midlife and Beyond, she provides a roadmap for navigating and celebrating the second half of life. And she's joining me now. Thank you for being here.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yes, so you wanted in this book to talk about the 7 big questions and answer those, from how long will I live to how will I die. So why those 7 questions?
So as you said, I was working on aging issues for 25 years.
Wow.
In the Senate, and, at Social Security Administration, at AARP, and then I was about to hit my 50th birthday. And I realized, there's so much I didn't know, and there wasn't a book out there. I had what to expect when you're expecting.
True.
But not what to expect when you're aging. And so I wrote down the questions that I wanted to know. Everything from basic ones like how long will I live and will I be healthy? Practical ones, will I have enough money and how long will I work? And then a little scary ones, will I lose my memory and how will I die?
Wow. Something for everybody, and I'm sure so many people have all of these questions as we're aging. And so in your work at AARP, what were you seeing that made you think, you know what, I need to write this book? Besides, of course, like you said, there wasn't really a book out there.
I think 2 things. One, how much people don't know about what goes on the second half of our life, and 2, how hard it is for people, and helping to explain to people why they fall into holes, whether they don't have enough retirement funds or don't understand how Social Security works, or maybe they just want to be part of the solutions to make aging easier that we work on every day. So it's both at the individual level of things you can do yourself, and then how can we make society better?
That's so amazing. And what was maybe one of the most surprising discoveries that you feel like you had when you were writing this book?
Well, I knew people didn't all live the same. We don't all die on the same birthday, but I didn't understand how different it is. So we as women, we live 6 years longer than men.
Wow.
People who have college degrees live 7 years longer. People who have really high incomes, the top 1%, lives a decade longer for women, 15 years for men. And then we have racial and ethnic disparities. So Native Americans in this country only live to 65 on average. So trying to understand why that is, so that people can plan for their future and understand what to expect. Now, we're all different. My own husband had a heart attack at 48 and luckily survived.
Yes.
But, you know, having a sense of knowledge is really powerful when you're thinking about your life and how to plan for it.
Wow, that's so powerful, having that sense of knowledge, like you said. And I'm reading here that by 2030, 1 in 5 Americans will be the age 65 or older. What do you think is the most pressing policy issues?
So demographic change is going to change the face of this country and really of the whole planet. We're seeing aging happening everywhere. And we just really haven't planned for demographic change in the same way we totally haven't planned for climate change. So one issue that's really important is family caregiving, because as people age, they often need extra help. And so their families step up to help. My mom took care of her mom for over 50 years. And in fact, I'm going to see my parents in Eastern Washington, where I grew up, this weekend.
Good.
And so thinking about how we can better support family caregivers so that you don't have to quit your job, so that you can take care of your loved one and get them the help that they need is really important. And Washington has one of the best programs in the country with Washington Cares that'll help modify homes or pay somebody to come into the house to help, or even pay a family member. So you guys are ahead of the curve here of thinking about these things.
We love hearing that, being ahead of the curve, and so many people, like you said, want to be in their homes if at all possible. And you have family here in the state, like you said, so does that impact how you think about some of these resources?
It does. You know, I'm on the other coast, so it's really hard. Luckily, my brother lives in Wenatchee. My parents live in the Grand Coulee Dam area, but living in rural communities, you have to drive an hour and a half just to go to the doctor.
Right.
And so thinking about how we can help them stay in their home, that's really important to them, but also get the health care that they need and the support that they need is something that my brother and I talk a lot with them about, because they love their house, they love their community.
Who doesn't? Yeah.
And want to stay there.
Wow, that's amazing to have those conversations like you're saying. And a lot is packed into this book, of course, and it talks about some, somber questions that you're answering throughout, but then it also goes to a better second 50. Tell me about that.
So this is the chapter my mom hasn't read yet.
Okay,
but
don't give too much away.
But it's all of the policy changes that we need to do to make it easier to age well in America. Caregiving, as we just talked about. How do we make sure that Social Security is solvent and there for not just the current retirees, but for future generations? How do we look at our healthcare system as we have a growing aging population and make sure that doctors and nurses are trained on geriatric care? How do we make sure that our housing is built for a forever home, not just a family home? So all of these issues I'm sort of trying to push into both the political and personal agendas so that people can live better.
Wow. Thank you so much for being here, Deb. This was very insightful and can't wait for people to read your book.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, and AARP has some great resources to help, including a free financial workbook for family caregivers. You can find that publication and more at the website that you see right there on your screen.
This portion of New Day Northwest is sponsored by AARP and BECU.